Hey, welcome everybody to Pealed Back's live conversation with series. This is episode 10. On the show today, we have Josh Plamondon, CEO of Aqua-Pak, and a group of companies underneath that. As always, I'm your host, Gene, and we're going to talk about his journey, enjoyment, and the balance of probably a work-life balance here and how that's gone for him now that he's the CEO of multiple companies. Josh, thank you so much being willing to be on the show today. I know it is Remembrance Day and it's a stat holiday for a lot of people, but I very much appreciate your time.
No problem, Gene. Happy to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
All right. So, care to tell us a little bit about your journey over the last, even 18 months? I know it's been an interesting one for you. And it's what I like to share with people is that journey, is all these milestones that you've had in a really short period of time.
Yeah, sure. The last year and a half has been an interesting one for me. I think my career, to really give it some context, I think I'll go all the way back to when I first started my professional journey, in my entrepreneurial journey, which was really, when I'm my first year university, I got the entrepreneurial itch. I was in one of those big, large auditoriums, and someone came through the auditorium and was waving a pamphlet and said, "Hey, how would you guys like to make $50,000 next summer?" And I said, "Yeah, sign me up." Right. And and that actually opened the door to the opportunity to become a college pro franchisee. They're a really cool organization that does student painting essentially, and I went through quite a process to get a franchise, and spent my first year university summer painting houses in the Lower Mainland, which was a lot of fun. Learned a lot about business. A lot of it was a lot about what not to do, which was an interesting journey. I think my friends made a lot of money and I walked out with nothing in my pocket. So I had to kind of figure out what I was doing wrong. And, that was actually how I kind of started my pursuit in accounting, and, through that became a CPA along the way. And I started my, my professional journey within Aqua-Pak 16 years ago. And I was, it's funny because in the last year, my career has changed quite dramatically with the organization, but I really started off as the AR clerk there in 14 years ago, 2006, I started off as their AR clerk collecting receivables from people. And, fast forward to today and I'm running the whole organization now. So it's been a lot of fun and pretty crazy ride.
So you started at the bottom and now you're at the top.
I think there's a good Drake song about that. Yeah. So the last year has been an interesting one. I had reached a bit of a crossroads with my career there. I had been the general manager for 7 years, and I was looking to kind of progress my career forward. And I always, from the first day I had started there, I'd said, we had these questionnaires as part of our annual reviews, and it says, "What do you want to be in your career?" And I always wrote CEO of a company one day. And I think in the early days, it raised a lot of eyebrows. They're like, "Who is this crazy guy?" But I never kind of wavered from what I was looking to accomplish in my career. And I guess a year ago, I decided, it was time to take the next step, and I wasn't sure whether that next step was going to be within the organization. I have a really good working relationship with the family that owns the company, and we had a good dialogue about, what my role and future looks like. And at the same time, I had started a little business on the side, doing some different types of work, some technology consulting and et cetera. But over the last year, kind of through that conversation, they came to me with the proposition to take on the next step in my career. And, they were able to make a few things happen for me, you know, professionally and financially, and all those other things that made a lot of sense. I really loved the work I was doing there, so I was more than thrilled to be able to continue my career kind of in the next level, and really be able to guide and run a business within, you know, within the vision that I see, and help develop and build a team of people that I could be really, you know, proud of. Is something that I'm really excited about. So yeah, it's been a fascinating 18 months. It's a coupled that with COVID, which has been a fascinating experience for everybody. It's definitely made for exciting times.
So how is, there's a couple things I want to talk about, like how has COVID experience or pandemic been while you're making this like huge transition? And as well, later on, I want to like pin back to some of your lessons learned in your college painting pro days that made you want to potentially what you took from that and where you are today. But like, let's continue on the topic of like this transition where you made this choice. They put something in, proposed something that you obviously just couldn't refuse because you've been writing down, I want to be the CEO one day. And someone finally looked through all the cards, went, well, he has been telling us for a long time he wants to be the CEO, and we don't want to be the CEO anymore. Let's give the reins to this guy. So how's that been going through that transition? Because you said it's a family-owned business. So obviously that can always be a little bit challenging, but it sounds like you have a really good working relationship with the owning group. So
yeah, it's been it's been an interesting year. They're pretty hands-on family. They're still really engaged in what's going on in the business, but you know, we've grown quite a bit in the last number of years. We've more than doubled the size of our company over the last 3 years, really, and you know, it's really time for us to grow up, so to speak, from you know, where we were before, and where we need to go to continue on this journey of growth. And it really, I you know, I'm the type of person that is very analytical and structured, and I have a good vision for where we need to go. So I think they have a level of trust in what I'm doing, and so that's been an interesting transition, because I think, you know, I'm learning a new role, they're learning a new role, and our staff are learning a new role. COVID has been an interesting thing for our business because, you know, we've had to deal with a lot of really important things to keep our operations going. We have about 170 employees, and you know, 3 locations through BC. A lot of what we're doing is you know, half of our business really is in packaging, which, you know, food service companies and people that are shipping temperature sensitive products. So it's really rely on us to stay in business. So we've had to work really hard on making sure we keep people safe and keep people healthy. And as far as dealing with you know, the transition, it's been an interesting journey. I just, you know, I you know, had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and where I was going to go in my career. And I really loved the work I had been doing, and it's been really interesting. So I didn't really want to leave. So I was really happy to find a way to make it work with me and the company.
Right. Now with COVID and the company still up and running, like, is everybody still going into the main offices? Or are you like, is the team working from home? Like, how's that set up?
Yeah, you know, it's been interesting. We made a really good hire over a year ago. We have a new director of HR, and she's been really pivotal in helping us manage this pandemic. And we've been very proactive on it. I think we've been ahead of a lot of other companies in the work that we've done to keep people safe. I know when the pandemic first started here locally in the kind of end of February, early March, we were meeting and talking about you know, getting people mobile and out of the office. You know, production wise, the way our operation is set up, you know, we already had social distancing in a lot of the operation, but you know, we implemented a lot of good cleaning protocols and those types of things. We had made investments in technology over the last few years that have been I know that people give me credit for that. I know that I was the architect for it, but I couldn't say I had foresight on what was coming down the pipeline, but all of our management systems are all cloud-based. A lot of our, communication platforms are all cloud-based. So to mobilize our entire workforce, or for the most part, our administrative workforce, and get them out of the office working from home and doing remote work, it was actually pretty seamless for us. We didn't have to worry about people connecting in and, managing all that. So that worked really well. So we started off doing that, and we've been fortunate. We've, like I said, we have close to 170 employees, full-time employees, and we've had one and that only happened in the last 3 weeks. We've only had one instance where someone actually got sick, but they there was no issues with respect to the workplace. They didn't report to work, and we did, we have a really good process in place. We had brought people back in the summer, and we were pretty well full on, with the exception of our sales group, who were, are out engaged with clients. So we want to minimize like kind of our social interactions out of the office. We've had like a no visitor policy for a long time, but up 3 weeks ago, I think we started a work rotation again, because we were a little concerned about things that were ramping up. And so we split the office into kind of different cohorts, and we're having people rotate in and out, but we're actually full out of the office right now, at least for the next few weeks, and we'll evaluate where it goes from there. So long answer, we've come through this quite well. We've really been diligent in the workforce. I think all of our employees recognize how important it is to work together as a group, because we could be shut down overnight if someone were to get sick, and they could wipe out an entire shift of production, or so I think people realize the responsibility that they have, and so far so good. I mean, knock on wood, it's not over yet, but I've been really proud about how everybody's responded.
So to be able to be able to still function the way that you are, I sense that there's some routines that you must have in place with at least your direct reports and stuff that are allowing you to still function in this way. Are you care to share some of those routines are with your direct team?
Yeah, good question. Some of this is stuff that I've been learning kind of even just recently. Like, one of the things that I've been doing is trying to create a lot of structure within my own routine. And, so now I have like theme days. So, my direct reports, I have, obviously everybody within the organization reporting up, but my key directors are, operations, sales, accounting and finance, and human resources. So, I have kind of a dedicated day for each one of those. And I've structured my days to, have, touch points with each one of my leadership team through each day. And then Tuesdays is generally our meeting day. So we usually run a lot of meetings on our Tuesdays. So, whether we were in the office or out of the office, it hasn't really changed that. We leverage Microsoft Teams quite extensively to kind of manage our communication within the organization. Teams has been interesting. I have to say, not to plug Microsoft, they've done a great job with that platform. And we learned it on the fly when we did the first sort of work from home experience in March. And, I think our teams have been really adopting it quite well. And we've been doing video meetings. So, I mean, aside from being able to reach out and touch somebody, it's been, fairly interactive, even though we're not in the office.
Yeah, I've had clients that use Microsoft Teams, and they did a good job with that product. There's a reason that it's getting the traction that it has, and the features that's sort of continuing to grow to keep people engaged.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's I've used Slack before, so it's a bit like Slack, and it combines kind of the storage and the communication side of it all in one. So we've been using that quite extensively as a way to maintain collaboration and communication, in order to make sure that we keep things moving forward and continuity in the business.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do you do that? So with you structuring your time, you were talking about themes. So like every one of your day is like accounting theme, a marketing theme, a sales theme.
Mm-hmm.
How has that been playing out, and how have you been keeping, how do you, well, I'll ask the real question that I want to know is, how do you keep yourself honest to those themes? Because there's, as the CEO, there must be so much stuff that's coming in at all times.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a hard, yeah. So I guess how do I keep structure? I think I balance my schedule on a weekly basis with strategic work, plan meetings, and then I leave open time to deal with day to day. Actually, we're doing some planning right now, and I was, some of my own team, some of our operations group were asking me kind of that same question. They're like, how do we look at these quarterly deliverables, these quarterly rocks that we need to deliver, and keep everything in focus and be able to manage all the other stuff that happens on a day to day, right? And I said, we need to find an interesting balance. You have to find a balance, because I think a lot of us can fall into this, just playing catch with what's coming through the door, and you're like 99% of your time spent on day to day, and then when you get to the end of the month or the end of the quarter, you end up finding that you haven't done any of the strategic work that's really important for the bigger picture. So for me, I mentioned early on that I'm a very structured analytical guy. I use a very structured kind of like daily planner, weekly planner. I use, as part of Teams, I use Microsoft Planner to manage our team and our activities and my activities as well. So I've got buckets of things where we throw tasks, and we have an issues list that we deal with, and it keeps things visible and accountable. And what we try and do is actually, it's funny because I'm the one that's like trying to peel things back to steal your name. I'm trying to make sure that our tasks and objectives list is small for our people, because if we're focused on, 2 or 3 things each week, we'll get them done. Whereas if we had 50 things, we're probably getting 4 of the 50 done, and you feel like you're not accomplishing anything. So, my role, I feel like, is almost, I do a lot of coaching. Essentially, that's really what my role is to make sure that we keep the ball rolling, and making sure that we stay focused, because I know day to day comes up and you have to deal with it. It's right now, right here. But in order to keep moving forward with those other things, you need to create this structure. And for me, I live by the planner. I live by those kind of theme days, and it seems to work pretty well. And what I try and do is I don't book the whole day. Like, I leave gaps in my day, and I have like conversations and calls and things of that nature that come up. I leave usually a 3-hour gap in my afternoon that's dedicated to that type of stuff. So, if someone wants to have a conversation, they can just book some time.
I think that's a really great point that you brought up there, Josh, is that you have that gap time. So many people, that I've worked with and worked for in the past, they're like, structure their whole calendar so there's no slack time built in. Because as you were talking about before, like, if you're in that reactive mode, always catching everything that comes in, and then you switch to this structured mode, be like, guess what? All those issues are still flying in, and you still need to create some room to triage and to be able to manage it, and without going, oh my God, I need to go drop everything and go deal with this phone call. And then the rest of your calendar, at least I've seen, just kind of like falls apart, like almost instantly. As soon as you break that commitment for whatever reason, it's like we're giving ourselves now permission to break our commitment to ourselves, so all the rest of them don't matter. And then we're right in reactionary, crazy time. So for anyone that's listening, like, building into these themes and everything else, like, the biggest gem Josh just gave you was include slack time into that.
Yeah. And the other thing for me too, so what I've done is I use I've been using Calendly as a way to kind of book appointments and manage my calendar. And what I've done is I've created like meeting blocks, or like the links for different department heads. So, part of that is respecting your own time as well, because if I didn't do that, people, like, the one downside to some of our calendar, like the way our at least our business is set up, is that people can go in and see if I have gaps in my calendar, right? And they'll just book time. Well, I have to now go and say, no, I don't want to meet with you at this time because I'm leaving slack time for something else or whatever it is. And, by using this Calendly app, for me, and building different links for different members of the organization, and I've communicated that with them, like, here's your day, here's some open time where if we have other stuff that comes up, book it in there.
Right.
Then they respect my time as well. So it's a bit of a two-way street. Because the problem is, if you don't run your time, someone else is going to.
I was just about to drop a very similar comment around that. It's like, obviously, what you're showing everybody is that you care about so much about yourself that you're willing to put yourself first, which allows everyone to go, all right, this is a dude that respects his time, respects what he's going to do. And when he shows up, that's just time for me. He's not thinking about anything else other than what we've got on the plate.
Yeah.
Now, I've noticed a few terms that you've talked about while you were talking about like your meetings and your structure and stuff. I want to take a stab in the dark and say that you've either read Traction or that you're applying some Traction methodologies. I hear rocks, I hear A's, I hear, I almost want to say I bet there's some level 10 meeting structure going on in your world.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, I busted. Yeah, Traction. I'm a believer in, those are like actually my three favorite books well, I like Traction. I certainly, I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. Start with Why. Good to Great is another one that really resonates with me, and it kind of helps me shape my management style and what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm sure you've got them all on your shelf there.
Good to Great.
Yeah. And I know I'm a big fan of Go Giver too. And I know you are as well. And, you had Bob Berg on your show, and landed Bob Berg. So
yeah, so
he's going to
be on it. So I just got to follow. My promise to him was after I read the book that we would schedule that up. So I'm on page 4. Listen to the Audible, I think 5 times since Saturday. So like just devouring that.
Yeah, I'm an Audible guy. I don't have a lot of, between my work and I've got a young family, to find time to read is hard. Right. And so what I've found is that Audible is great for me because if I'm in my car or I'm doing like I'm on a run or whatever, I can throw it in and listen, and it's great. You get that, you fill in the dead time, I guess, that normally you'd be doing something else. So yeah, Audible's good. I think I listened to that a couple of times as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great service to have. The one interesting thing, this is the first book that I've read that I've also got the Audible for. So it's interesting now reading it and going, oh, I know what's going to happen next. And it's actually like reinforced a lot of the learnings that I was taking from it. So it's
very cool.
Interesting. So with Traction and even like Good to Great, and like Start with Why obviously is a much more like, I'd say that's for that strategy mindset, but like, why are we here? And then how, and then the what, right? So, and how all those are structured. But when you're taking over, you're like, what, 5-6 weeks into having this new role, right? So
yeah,
like is bringing like the Traction and the understanding of rocks been a new process for your team?
A bit, yeah. And it's funny because I wanted to implement everything like all right away, right? And I've had to do it in small bits and bites, So we've always done like a weekly leadership huddle every week, and it was agenda focused, but the work that we did in those meetings was typically the highlights, so to speak, right? And so creating the first couple things that we did is I restructured the meeting and I introduced the concept of like rocks and issues, essentially, right? And we've had rocks, we just never really called them that, and I think that they were never really in focus with what we were doing on a day-to-day basis. So I was able to the concept wasn't hard for people to understand, and that was sort of the first kind of bits of Traction that I used to implement. And I think the staff understand it, and we're working through, interestingly enough, timing is interesting for me in this new role as we're working on our annual planning. So we're going through, goal setting and looking at where we're going to be in 10 years, 3 years, where do we have to be in 12 months to accomplish those things. And we're setting our 12-month plans and then breaking them down into those quarterly objectives, which will end up becoming each individual department head's rocks, or, you know, our corporate rocks as well. So that's been a lot of fun. And that's been where I've spent most of my time in the last 5 weeks, essentially.
Right.
But yeah, interesting concept. Yeah.
So for anybody who may not have listened to Traction or read Traction before, how would you describe a rock, or like the concept around the rock? So
yeah,
put you on the spot a little bit, but
sure. Yeah, no, that's great. To me, a rock is, I mean, I love the word because it's like an immovable object, right? It's here's something you need to do, and you can't like chicken out and not do it. Like it's you've made the commitment, it's there, and that's it. I also look at them as the strategic pillars, right? Like they're the legs that hold up your strategic initiative. So if I look at an annual goal and I break down, you know, 4 sort of subset goals that I need to achieve through each quarter to get there, those are the immovable objects that I need to achieve in order to hit that annual goal, or it's just not going to happen. So, you know, it's like the 4 legs to the chair, so to speak. You know, if you take out the leg, the chair doesn't work, right? You know, and for me, it helps create focus, because it's, you know, talking about your time and how you structure your time. And, you know, for me, I need to have a balance between day-to-day and strategic. Those rocks are the strategic. And if we're creating, you know, on an individual level, really 2 to 3, but on a business level, like for an organization, we have 5 to 7 as an organization, right? And I think those are achievable things. Like they still might be hard to get to, and you got to put a lot of work in to get there, but you know, you're not overwhelmed by, you know, 50 different deliverables that you got to achieve. You're really focused on kind of 2 to 3 main things.
right. And then every, you know, what is your cadence for reviewing those for progress? Like, do you guys do that on a weekly?
We look at them every week as part of our meeting. So in our planner, if we have, I don't know if you're familiar with Microsoft Planner, but basically we have like a corporate plan in our Microsoft Planner. We've got, you know, our corporate rocks is kind of our first category, our first bucket. And then we have our to-dos, and then we have our issues list. So our to-dos is like 7 to 14 day things. Some of it might be things from our rocks. Some of it might be just things from our issues list that we've brought up that we need to action. We have a parking lot as well, so we stuff things in the parking lot that like we've talked about, but you know, maybe aren't time sensitive, or things that we can deal with later because we've already got too many to-dos on our list or whatever it is, right? So that's a bit what our board looks like, and we go through that every week in our meetings. So our meetings traditionally used to be like an hour, I would say an hour and a half on every Tuesday, and we would talk for 90 minutes of like highlights, like telling us what happened last week and this. Now we talk for 10 minutes about the highlights, and we spend, you know, 40 minutes talking about our issues and our rocks, right? So, right. Yeah, it's really changed the conversation and the focus on what we're doing. And I think, you know, it's funny, in 5 weeks, I think we've really changed how we operate too. Like we're moving a lot quicker. We're dealing with things a lot more, you know, expediently. And I think that really will help us set up for the next part of our journey as a business.
Right. So right now, that's more than anything, it's about getting the team set up with that foundation, prepared for what 2021 is going to be able to bring. And
yeah, absolutely.
You're putting them through a bit of a boot camp to get prepared and have this change in this direction and this alignment, right? Like that alignment is what is critical to a company's success, and any team's success. Is if they're all rowing in the same direction, then you as the CEO can have a lot more faith in what's going on. You don't have to micromanage then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part that I was the most excited about with taking this role was creating that sort of focused alignment, top to bottom, right? Yeah. You know, as an organization, we probably weren't as aligned as we would like to have been, right? And I think, you know, that was through no fault of anybody's, but it's just, you know, a lot of businesses kind of go through that evolution, especially as they grow. And you know, now we're in a position where we really want to do that. I mean, foundation is a great word. We're looking at the next 12 to 15 months as our foundation period. So there's a lot of our goals that we're setting really focus on putting pieces and programs in place to be able to continue accelerating our business, right? Like we have some big, hairy, audacious goals for the next 10 years, right? And in order to get there, there's some, baseline foundational things that we need to achieve in order for us to scale. Because we could grow the business right now, but I mean, maybe there's a few things that we're not really good at that we'd probably trip and fall on our noses if we don't get those things in place first. So our next, because COVID's a pretty uncertain time, and we're working on ourselves over the next little while to make sure that we're prepared for, opportunities as they present themselves.
I love that you brought up the fact that you're working on yourselves. Now, maybe this is just a result of the people I hang around with, but I've heard a lot of people talk about like this is that opportunity to take that, I call it the great pause, but a lot of people are going, what do I need to actually work on? How do I need to show up better? Like, and some people are even going, do I even like what I'm doing? Like, you had this great opportunity to be like, I want to do more, and more is magically, well, not magically. You put in a lot of hard work there. I don't mean to belittle that at all, but like you've accomplished that because you were putting the work in on yourself, and it's amazing how much happens when you actually start to put all that work into yourself. Like take a piece from Good to Great where they talk about the flywheel, right? Like at first it's slow when you're pushing it, and then all of a sudden over a couple of years, it starts to spin and spin and spin and get faster and faster with each little push. And that's all that inner work. It feels in that short period of time like it's probably taken forever to show up. Then all of a sudden it's just like, poof, here we go. You're an overnight success 4 years later.
Yeah, I mean, that's how people see you, but I mean, they don't see all that hard work that took to get to that point, right? But and spin that wheel faster and faster for sure. And but it's interesting. I'm always an optimistic guy. I think anybody that knows me would tell you that like I'm always a person that tries to find positives and look at bright sides. And I mean, this is a very strange and in a lot of ways not a great time for the world, but I looked at it as an opportunity to invest in myself and be better at what I do personally, right? And I have a coach, and we go through a lot of exercises on how can I be a better leader? How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better, person in general, right? And I've taken it upon myself as an opportunity during this time to work on those things. And I see a lot of people that they've been the opposite of that. They've looked at this opportunity. I don't know whether it's, being on CERB doing whatever, right? Like it's like, hey, take some classes or, upgrade your skills or, doors will open when they're there. People ask me about my success and how I've achieved it. And it's an interesting thing. I always, there's no magic to it. I think I've always had a goal of where I wanted to go. And way back when, I don't think I ever wrote the goals down necessarily, but in my head, I knew what I was trying to accomplish. But it was kind of one of those things like preparation meets opportunity. Like opportunity presents itself to everybody all the time. It's just, are you paying attention enough to see it and go through the door when it opens? And, I think for me, I looked at those, I jumped at those chances, right? They were there. Being able to get promoted and do things like that. Sometimes it was just a way to put yourself forward, and you have to work really hard at it. But I mean, you have to be prepared when the opportunity presents itself to walk through the door. And so there's no real magic to it. I think certainly you need to have some skills, and you gotta work really hard. But I think just paying attention. Sometimes those things can be right in front of you, and that's a good thing as well. But yeah, for our organization, focusing on ourselves and trying to be better at what we're doing is really important for us right now. It's there's no other things that we can do in this kind of, we can't control what's happening with the pandemic, but we control what we're doing.
Yeah, it's all about how we show up, right? And I like the fact that you broke it down to be like being prepared and as well walking through that door, because they're two different things, right? Like like the opportunity is constantly showing up, and you can either identify it, go, oh, look, there's a door. Then you have another choice to be like, do I want to step through it? Am I too afraid? Like, is there a challenge around, what would it mean to my identity if I walk through this door? But even to be able to see that door, you have to be prepared and kind of in that mindset of going, life isn't horrible. I have the opportunity to control so much about how I'm looking at things, my mindset, my body, all these other pieces. I can either be the victim of my circumstances, or I can be the author of my own story. It's like you said earlier around the time, be like, you either write your own story or somebody else is going to do it for you. And it's the same thing. Be like, you want to control your time, or somebody else is going to. You want the control of your destiny, or somebody else is you're going to be part of somebody else's story. You pick. And it is total. It is a choice. And sometimes it can be really tough to see that and to understand it. And I know some people may listen to us talking, going, that could never be me. Be like, it could be you. And it is completely, we've all been there. We've all had those thoughts where it's been like, I can't do this, the imposter syndrome, or just a really bad chapter of your life. Chapters come and go.
Totally. And, we all face those same things. Like you mentioned, imposter syndrome. I mean, it's, I felt I could, there's many times where you feel that way, but you have to have confidence in yourself. You have to put the work in to be ready to to do it. And you need a good support team around you too, to be able to talk to and, communicate about those things. Right. I found sharing a lot of that, those feelings, those inner feelings about how you are with a group of peers is a bit cathartic, because it helps, it definitely helps you build that confidence. But everybody can do it. It's just, there's people that make choices to pursue it, and then there's those that let the world dictate them what their life is going to be like.
It's about choosing what triggers you want to respond to, right? Like so maybe it's a bit of a tangent, but I always look at how any situation, you have two things that are going to happen. You're going to have a reaction. We really have no control over that reaction. Like, it's our body and our subconscious is going, hey, this is how emotionally we're feeling. You get these weird, you either get like this really elated feeling in your body, you're really happy and light, or you could be angry or sad, whatever. The next part is the response. And what a lot of times happens is, like, when those two things aren't separated, you actually have to give them some space. Because if you really want the real true success, is like, you can go, oh, I'm feeling something right now. And I can either choose to like be happy or rip somebody's head off, or I can take like 3 seconds and go, what's really going on here? Is this person really like making me happy? Is this person really making me sad or angry? And if yes or no, I'll be like, okay, well, how about we just work through that before we add some fuel to whatever fire's about to go down here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's it's all interesting stuff. I feel like I'm in a perpetual state of learning how to be more emotionally intelligent, and how to hone my craft. Like, my craft now is really visionary, strategic, leadership, coaching, kind of all those things wrapped up into one little ball. And I feel like I've been training for this my whole life, whether it's through, my athletics, or through, my education, and just, who I am. Like, I've always sort of gravitated to being a leader, and it's interesting. You always continue to learn about yourself, and you learn how to deal with situations, and how to manage those things as they come up.
It comes down to, like, it sounds like you have a very curious mindset, and you're always looking for those opportunities and growing. And it is interesting to be able to look back now where you're at and go, oh, all those things actually prepared me to be right where I am today. Because if you didn't have
absolutely
some of those bad experiences, I know we didn't really get back to the lessons learned from college pro painting, but like, what would you go tell that Josh now, as ending 2020 as the CEO of 4 firms and a group of companies that has almost 200 employees, looking to do some big and hairy audacious goals over the next decade? Like, what would you go tell them?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if I would tell them any like how to do things differently. I think I've learned from my experiences. Like the first thing that comes to mind is learn how to manage a set of books. Well, I became an accountant, so I think I figured that one out. And that was a big reason why I became an accountant. I think I took an accounting course because I was like, I don't know, like the company, they gave me a one rate, and anybody that's an accountant that knows, this is like before the days of QuickBooks and things of that nature. It's like you handwrite, you put things in a ledger, and oh my God, right? And so they did some great training on all that, and learn your numbers, right? That was the big thing for me that I took away from that. And I knew that at the time. I was like, I need to learn what this is all about. Why am I not making any money on these jobs, etc. Took some accounting, and I always say, someone that takes accounting, you either get it or you don't. And I got it, and it was something that made a lot of sense to me. And I looked at it as a career opportunity and a career path that I wanted to pursue. So that's, the rest is kind of history from there. But, definitely, I would say to myself, learn the books, learn the finances. Second thing would be, don't try and be a hero and do it yourself. I mean, I was 18, 19 years old, I thought I knew more about life than anybody else, and
As 18-year-olds
didn't want to take advice from anybody else, probably. And that was I would say, be open to feedback, and I would say surround yourself with people that that have experience, and I think for me, I try and do that in my daily life and in my work life, is do a really good, honest SWOT analysis of your skill sets, and surround yourself with people that fill in the gaps, because they're going to really be the ones that help you be successful. And, that was something that, I probably could have learned back then. But what's funny is the experience itself, it got my feet wet, and it got my appetite for being an entrepreneur. It was unbelievable experience. Like if I was super successful, I probably wouldn't have learned as much, as because I wasn't, right. I think that was the big thing for me. And those would probably be the two big takeaways: is learn the numbers and surround yourself with people that can help fill in the gaps,
And now, as the CEO, you have obviously you as an accountant who's now a CEO, you probably understand your numbers extremely well around how do those relate back to some KPIs of some kind. And the people you've got are obviously, you're coaching them and you have faith in them, and that's allowing you to go focus on that strategy side and not worry about the weeds, because you've got incredible people who are probably far better than you'd ever be in each of those roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I certainly would say that I have a really good holistic vision, and I feel like I can articulate that vision quite well. But I need, I really rely on the team that we've built to carry it out, because they bring so many great perspectives that, they've worked their entire lives honing their crafts in those fields. And, you need to be humble and understand that, and trust. You have to trust them, right? You have to trust that they bring those perspectives that are really going to help you be successful. So it's funny. I've learned that lesson through the years of working, and, you take away all the good things and negative things about people that you work with and work for, and try and build that into your own, cadence and ethos, and make that a part of who you are. And I've tried to do that, and I think a lot of that's led me to where I am today.
Right. That's awesome, man. Well, cool. As I had said during our warm-up time, we were going to find that 45 minutes goes away like that.
It does.
Mark here, I know that you've got dinner cooking and everything else, being working from home and having to support. Is there anything else that you'd like to kind of share with the group? Any final pieces of wisdom, or your biggest lesson in the last 6 weeks?
I think people are tired of me on my soapbox already, so I don't have anything else to provide. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think it's an awesome it's funny. I was I think everybody probably tells you this. They're always a little nervous to come on. It's sort of my first, live cast. But I really enjoyed it. You're right that the conversation goes by quickly, and would love to come back and chat again and talk about enjoyment.
Yeah, I would love to have you back on. I want to see well, obviously we're going to continue having some conversations, but it'd be great to have you back in, next year to see how some of the stuff is lined up and what you've taken. And, we can talk about enjoyment and how building up this process that you're talking about through Traction and these other tools are really allowing you to continue to enjoy your own journey as the CEO of all these companies.
Yeah, sounds great.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciated it. This conversation was great, as all of them have been with you so far. And to everybody else, thank you for watching the LiveCast Conversation with series. This has been episode 10. I'm your host, Gene, and that's another completed episode. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Gene.